Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here. And question is this, are we all being played? Is everything theater? But at the end of the day, is everything just theater? We ask some tough questions in this one, and I appreciate you so much for tuning in. We are going to get into the controversial globalist order, the new world order, the controllers and the owners of this world. What is really going on? As you guys know, I've been following the Candace Owens investigation into Charlie's assassination very, very closely, and I think she's doing absolutely remarkable work. But I'm starting to have questions. In fact, I emailed my friend Todd Callender today and I posited, is it possible we're all being played? More on that in just 1 second. And before I introduce my longtime friend and guest, Dr. Len Horowitz, I just want to mention the Macron, Rothschild, Brigitte bloodlines are real. I do think the masters of the universe do play us with just about every false flag. Some people are suggesting that Charlie's assassination was a false flag. Some are saying it didn't happen at all. I'm beginning to wonder if we aren't being played. I stumbled upon this today because of a trending video over on BitChute. Charlie Kirk hoax explained in 6 minutes. Now, this was because I did a search about the more than $5 million mansion that evidently Charlie and Erica Kirk owned in Silverleaf, Arizona, a gated community. North Scottsdale, nearly 7,000 square feet. Now, evidently, according to public records, they sold this mansion in January 2025, but there was no new property recorded, no new home that was purchased for the family to live in. In fact, no records at all, which led me, because I hadn't heard about that, which led me to this article by Gemma O'Doherty, which I will leave linked below. And friends, I won't read it all to you here, but she believes that we are being played. And nothing adds up regarding Charlie's death. No official death certificate. The doctor's name who worked on Charlie at the hospital, who knows? Where's the autopsy report? Who knows? Where was he buried? Who knows? Was he buried at all? Nobody knows. The only thing I really bump on in this list of questions and anomalies is the suggestion that Charlie faked his death. But who knows, friends? Who knows? You remember the Mossad agent on 60 Minutes? He said the world is their stage. So who knows? And I think Dr. Len Horowitz has some thoughts. By the way, guys, I am not throwing Candace under the bus. I think she's very brave and very courageous. But honestly, as I watch her show every single night, I've remarked to my wife, how is this possible? Is AI helping her write these scripts? I mean, it's just too perfect. Anyway, Dr. Len Horowitz is here. He and Sherry Kane, the journalist, have written a new book titled The Las Vegas Deep State Massacre. You guys will remember the Las Vegas shooting on October 1st, 2017, which they blamed on Stephen Paddock. Well, so much more to talk about today. Dr. Len Horowitz, the websites medicalveritas.org, healthyworldstore.com, and of course, drlenhorowitz.com. Len, welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Sean. Just real quick clarification. My dearly beloved partner in journalism, Sherry Kane, in my opinion, was manslaughtered. She's no longer here with us. The Hawaii case, my litigation in Hawaii is still ongoing. It's actually heating up right now. I won't go into that. But basically, I firmly believe that the people and the circumstances killed Sherry Kane several years ago. So that book that you mentioned is still up on healthyworldstore.com, and it delivers what nobody has been really talking about concerning the Las Vegas Deep State Massacre. So just want to make that clarification.
Well, I appreciate that. And we'll get into the Las Vegas false flag, because that's what it was. There was an operation, in my mind, going on. I think it's really on the record at this point. There was a military operation going on. We'll talk about that and some of the theories and why there was a Las Vegas massacre at all at the Harvest Music Festival on October 1st, 2017. But Len, I'm beginning to wonder, is Erica Kirk an asset? And if that's true, if Erica Kirk was an asset groomed for her role, it's a possibility. Is it not also possible that Charlie Kirk was an asset groomed for his role, and Candace too? Is that a road too far for you? Am I losing my mind?
Actually, no, I applaud what you're thinking, actually, and I think it's consistent with my thoughts, and I think my conclusion is that, yes, we're all being played. We're all being taken out. This is basically a big picture deals with what we're witnessing on headline news is political theater. It's all theater. Democrat versus Republican, it's divide and conquer. And Jew versus Gentile, you know, Islam versus Israelis, Christians versus Muslims. All of it is literally consistent with what's called critical race theory and the CIA's secret project, which is intimately connected to the Trump administration's Project Stargate, which is MK Ultra. The original mind control social engineering program was called MK Ultra, and that's being played out now, extending it into the AI and robotics and vaccination, mRNA vaccinations with Project Stargate. Yes, you're absolutely right. I'm disgusted, frankly. I'll give you just two examples. I told my wife when I first started to follow Candace Owens, she should be president of the United States. Here you have an outrageously beautiful black woman who's extremely articulate, very knowledgeable, and like you say, just off the cuff, come up with stuff that you go, wow. Okay, so that was my original position on Candace Owens. Now it's changed tremendously. I have a dear friend who's been heavily investigating everything that she's been saying and doing, and frankly, it's the same thing, the same old, same old. It fits into the same social engineering agenda. The same thing I'm concerned about. I sent Charlie Kirk and Turning Point organization money. You know, I'm not a wealthy guy, but I did that. Whenever Erica Kirk was on the air crying, I was crying. My wife was crying. So, you know, we are sincere believers in what he was doing. That is, opening up communication lines, reaching out to the youth, which is necessary. But when you see, for example, the subject that I was preparing for today, this Las Vegas deep state massacre, you see the same elements being played out and the same players deep into this that are really not talked about. It's all censored. You know, the movers and shakers, the puppeteers are not ever disclosed. And so, you know, look at Charlie Kirk, look at Candace Owens, look at all the people that have our attention. Look at even President Trump. He holds our attention.
Deep state, I've come for you!
You know, ye shall know them by their fruit. What's the fruit? I'm disgusted. How is it possible? Today's news is that James Comey gets off the hook completely. How is that possible? Again, it fits into exactly what you've concluded and I've concluded. We're being played. It's all political theater. And unfortunately, now we have to figure out, okay, how do we get beyond what's called critical theory? How do we recognize the criminality and the psychosocial pathology of mind control, MK Ultra? This whole critical theory where we question, you know, critical race theory, where, systemic racism, all of this, we're fed. And what happens to our brains? We're controlled. So anyway, that's my take.
All right. Well, let me ask you one other question before we move on here, just regarding the nature of the theater. I'm wondering if some of these people aren't groomed for their roles, while others, maybe Candace, is authentic in what she's uncovering, because we have to question everything, including the Las Vegas deep state massacre.
You know, God has a purpose for everything, as you well know. You're my brother in Christ, and I love you. The reality is that this inexplicable confusion that we are having to deal with now to make sense of our lives and how we fit into this. We look at, even in the news today, it's showing how families are degenerating. People's faith in God is deteriorating. Religions are all basically being scammed and outputting scams. And so the whole concept that we're looking at is, what's God's role in this? And I have to conclude that we have to come to terms with what's taking place in respect to our communion capacity, because there's nothing that we can grasp exterior to us, external to us, that is verifiable It's all confusion. It's all mass manipulation. God represents righteousness. When Jesus said that I am the truth, that's what we're missing today, the truth and the life that gives us life. That's where we have to go eventually. Now, as somebody who adored Charlie Kirk's message, that's basically what I have heard from Erica Kirk, and I've heard from Charlie Kirk. Yet, it fits into what we're talking about now. If they were controlled, if everything that we witness is political theater, then our only source of sustenance and safety and security rests in divine communion, our relationship with the Creator, and this capacity that we have within our souls and spirits to discern truth for our own lives.
Now, the little bit I know about this massacre is that they tried to pin it on Stephen Paddock, who I believe was suckered to be there by some attractive young women, assets, who said, hey, we've got some rich clients who want to buy some guns. So he got set up in his suite, and this whole thing got pinned on Stephen Paddock. Meanwhile, there's a theory that this entire massacre, this entire operation, was a military operation to save the life of Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Maybe we'll get there in this conversation. Len, where do you want to start?
Well, the most important issue you've raised and beautifully articulated, we're so confused. Again, that's why I direct our focus of attention, heartfelt, loving intention in faithful prayer and developing this internal loving awareness and relationship with the Creator so that we can navigate this matter. And we haven't even talked about the greatest risk to civilization yet. We may be able to get to that, which is artificial intelligence and robotics. Elon Musk says that, and has written even in his litigation against OpenAI, Sam Altman, and Larry Ellison with Oracle, which is a CIA operation from the get-go. He said that this technology, artificial intelligence, robotics in the wrong hands, represents the greatest risk to civilization's extinction. So we haven't even touched on that. We're dealing with now this very superficial level. We're diagnosing the fact that we've all been played. We've all been played. And so, and all these major players, again, you can't reconcile it. You can't reconcile it at all. You can't understand it unless you bring in this question that you're questioning. Are these people legitimate? Are we being played? And is this political theater? Now, getting back to Paddock, okay, so this is what we were told. We were fed. I happened to have, with Sherry Kane, God bless her soul, we were scheduled to be at that concert. Our plane was delayed. We got there just as the shooting was ending, and everything was chaotic. So we spent the next 3 days investigating and interviewing people. So virtually, I was a witness to what was unfolding, and that included a cover-up, massive, massive cover-up. So let's get to the basics of that, and then we can maybe draw some lessons from that to apply it to this question that you're raising. So the three major suspects that have been completely overlooked in the Las Vegas Deep State Massacre. And again, this sources from the book, The Las Vegas Deep State Massacre. It's up on healthyworldstore.com. It's an interactive book. We made it an interactive book because we wanted to have people engage the actual evidence and the actual videotape of our evidence. So what prompted this show today was headline news, and I came out with a little blurb, and you said, hey, I want to cover that, so let's cover it. Go to Norm Augustine as one suspect, Michael Chertoff as the second leading suspect, and James Murrin, third leading suspect. We have to look at those main players. Let me give you some background, if I may, Sean. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Chertoff, the former head of Homeland Security. Do I have that right? Going back to 9/11?
Yes, that's right. Now, you remember going back to not only 9/11, but the entire Patriot Act. You remember Patriot Act?
Yep.
Okay, so he was one of the major construction agents and the authors of the Patriot Act. You have, aside from him, you have James Murren, who was CEO of MGM Grand International and a key member of the National Infrastructure Advisory Council that to this very day advises presidents of the United States as to how to administer homeland security for the infrastructure challenges. So that's Murren. Chertoff, meanwhile, is virtually an offshoot from the CIA. American attorney, second U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, and going back to Las Vegas Deep State Massacre, at the time of the shooting, the Homeland Security was just finishing up an exercise, a terroristic exercise in Las Vegas. Interestingly enough, how that coincided. Anyway, Chertoff is a key suspect. He succeeded Tom Ridge as the Secretary of Homeland Security in 2015. He left government service and formed his own. Now, again, money. People always question, where's the money going? Follow the money, track the money. The money made from the Las Vegas Deep State Massacre, the primary purpose of that was not simply what they said, that we've got to ban guns, Second Amendment. It wasn't just about that. It was really additionally about making massive amounts of money over the increased private sector security services provided mainly by the Chertoff group. Michael Chertoff and his group spun off by the CIA. When Chertoff left the CIA and engaged in In-Q-Tel, which is the CIA's top for-profit, they call it a non-profit investment firm, but no, they're making massive amounts of money, and they're not telling us about that. But basically, Chertoff groups brought with him, and Chertoff, to form the group, took about 10 to 12 top CIA operatives to form this national security, international security, because if you look, George Soros even invested in what was coming down with this whole fraud of the mass murder of all those people in Las Vegas.
Can we back up?
Anyway, that's Chertoff.
Well, yeah, let me ask you, because you mentioned Chertoff, James Murren, the CEO of MGM, which is interesting. Let's bookmark that one and come back to what was going on at the MGM that day. And Norman Ralph Augustine. Who's Norm?
Paddock's boss was virtually Norman Augustine. U.S. aerospace businessman, served U.S. National Security Undersecretary of the Army, Lockheed Martin corporate official. Also, he served in the Office of the Secretary of Defense as Assistant Director of Defense Research and Engineering, heavily involved in the space programs. Now, my take on the entire Mars project that Elon Musk, again, considering that all of what we're witnessing is, this theater. So we've got Musk now supposedly being opposing Bill Gates and Microsoft. At any rate, heavily involved in the Mars project and the space program. You got to go back, if you're really a good researcher, to the report from Iron Mountain. The Iron Mountain report said, okay, if we're going to have globalization, we have to substitute military investments with, among the 5 alternatives to making money off of humanity's suffering and depopulation, population control by war, we need to substitute, among the substitutes, it was an endless space program that was supposed to basically protect us from extraterrestrial threats. Well, that's what we're witnessing. So that's my personal bias. I review the think tanks that gave rise to all of this space hype, and Norm Augustine is central to this whole issue, heavily invested in this whole operation. So he was Paddock's employer. Lockheed Martin Corporation employed Paddock. So, he's a patsy, like you said. And so where do we go from here? You got to go to the evidence that shows that this is not what the media presented it as. This wasn't just a solo shooter. You had here helicopters, and this was what came out in our news feeds about a week ago. You had supposedly the first time a video released showing a helicopter shooting down. As Paddock was shooting, there was a helicopter that was shooting down on the audience, said this new news feed. I'm sorry, it wasn't a new news feed. We published that way back within a week or two after when we did the book online book, The Las Vegas Deep State Massacre. We showed that video. That's still up on revolutiontelevision.net, which is when I got canceled, like you were canceled from Google, YouTube. I set up my own television station. It's revolutiontelevision.net. And in there, if you do the research and find it, or even click on the book, the links, you'll see not just one helicopter shooting down, but there's different videos taken by different private individuals showing at least 2 helicopters shooting down. And when Sherry Kane and I were there doing our investigation, we noted that there was 2 other at least shooting groups on the roof of a trailer that was set up as the administration building at the concert. In the back of the venue, there were at least 2, possibly 3 shooters dressed all in black with visible guns that they were holding. They were shooting also. And when we examined the crime scene, we noticed that there had to have been another shooter on the roof of the water tower. How come we knew that? Because there was a report early on that was censored that there was a policeman who shot at that shooter and his bullet hit actually the water tower. This within a few inches of where the shooter was. The police officer missed him and shot the side of the water tower. Now, they cleaned that up really fast, just like they did with Crooks's body. They whitewashed it very, very quickly. And so you have to look at all other facts. Not only was Homeland Security conducting a, quote, exercise at that time, but where were the other shooters and the events taking place at the same time that MGM Grand and this particular shooting took place? And by the way, the hotel was part of this MGM Grand operation. And MGM Grand Resorts International directed CEO James Murren. Murren shorted the stock. He knew that this was going to be taking place, in my opinion, my conclusion. And basically, he's shorted his own stock. It dropped tremendously, and then he repurchased it. Likewise, the other investors were likewise complicit and implicated.
Let me interrupt and just interject a couple of points just to keep us moving down the path in a way that makes sense for the audience, because people forget about this stuff, and a lot of younger people don't know anything about this because it happened almost 10 years ago. So the alleged shooter, the patsy, Stephen Paddock, was, I believe, on the 32nd floor, said to be on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay. Now, we have police body cam footage of the police coming in saying, there are no windows broken in this room.
It's right here. We are facing north. We are facing north.
Just confirming that is you guys, that's in the broken window that faces the left floor.
We are facing the left floor. We do not have a broken window.
There's no windows broken. So John Cullen has reported that Paddock didn't break the windows. The LVMPD did. They broke the windows later. So you keep mentioning the MGM Grand. I remember on the night of these shootings happening, Len, multiple reports from all over Las Vegas of shooters in various casinos. One, I think, included being the MGM Grand, right?
That's right. That was my next point. You had at Bellagio, you had an event, a shooting event, broken windows, people were freaking out, the guests were running around like crazy. You had likewise at other places on the Strip, not far, I believe is New York area, you had another shooter. So all of this was actually taking place at the time you raised the issue right off the bat. You had foreign dignitaries from the Muslim world and the Middle East be engaged in what was taking place at this time.
Can I just share with the audience what the conspiracy theory is about this?
Yeah, go ahead,
About
please.
those dignitaries. Let's be real specific. It is said that the Crown Prince, Salman, was staying at the Four Seasons in Las Vegas, and that there was a plot, an assassination plot by powerful Saudi and Arabian families that didn't necessarily want him to take the helm. Now, it's said that Donald J. Trump saved his life because this whole thing was a military operation. Okay, the conspiracy theory goes that Salman was warned, his life was saved, and exactly 1 month later, at the Ritz-Carlton in, I believe, Saudi Arabia, could be Qatar, I'm not sure which, there was a shakedown where all of these powerful members of the family were ordered to the Ritz-Carlton, okay, by the prince, and many of them were tortured. I think some of them were put in prison. Some of them may have been killed. Do you want to expand on that at all and then continue with what you're saying? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Sean. I'm too ignorant to do that. I remember what you're saying, and we did write about it. I have to go back and review it. It's been 10 years. But yes, Prince Salman, I think I recall, was engaged with a serious feud with his relative, who is in charge of the power in the country. And that after this event, there was a complete shift. The brother, I think it was, or his relative in charge, was ousted and possibly killed. And so I don't have all the facts to that. For investigators that want to research that, you can probably dig up a lot more than what I'm sharing.
Can I say one other thing, though? I don't want to put you on the spot because that's about the totality of what I know to be true, too. But given the Charlie Kirk assassination, okay, here's the thing. If the Vegas op was that, a military operation, for whatever reason, whether it was to save the Crown Prince's life or not, to intervene in the assassination attempt against him or not, what we saw happen with Charlie Kirk, I'm just drawing the lines as it pertains to Trump. In this case, we're to believe Trump was the good guy who saved Salman's life. But regarding Charlie Kirk, everybody's wondering then if the Egyptian planes were allowed to come in to Provo via Minot Air Force Base after coming in from Cairo. That's very unusual because that's a civilian airport in Provo. They would have had to have permission from the highest levels of the U.S. government and or an escort. So I'm just starting to wonder, because Candace has said she believed from day one the Charlie assassination was a military op. Now that appears to be true. But in this case with Charlie, Trump's not playing the role of the good guy because there's no real investigation into this thing. And anyway, I just bring it up because maybe many of these operations are military level operations. You know, not just false flags with just the CIA messing around in the background, but like overt U.S. military operations in conjunction with other nation states.
Yes, critical information. And expanding from conspiracy theory to conspiracy reality, looking at law. In law, what we're witnessing here, it's called a racketeering enterprise, and that's proven in law by a pattern and practice. Evidence showing a pattern and practice of the same kind of operation over and over again. And that's what you're raising here. I think it's very, very legitimate, the concerns you're raising. The matter of fact, today's news, James Comey gets off the hook because of a procedural error in the prosecution. What?
Letitia James, too. Yeah, Letitia James and James Comey indictments thrown out by some federal judge who I guess is just the king of the world.
Yes, but the fact that the prosecution would be so stupid and practice recklessly and basically malpractice to the extent that they would actually taint the jurors with evidence, that case would be thrown out and then precluded from future because of statute of limitations,
as they had first erroneously reported.
Excuse me, I'm not a lawyer, but I've studied a bit of law. And what that sounds like is insane. Now, couple that with the same pattern, same practice of unreasonable excuses and determinations. Look at Kash Patel and look at Dan Bongino coming out this past week and saying, oh, crooks operated all alone.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you absolutely know the ridiculous scenario of National Security Agency and all the people surrounding it that permitted crooks to be on that roof all alone, unattended, with a weapon. It doesn't make any sense except for when you integrate this common pattern and practice of a racketeering enterprise, befuddling everybody, using the mass media to persuade people to be insane and accept the insanity. I'm sorry, I see it over and over again. That's what we're witnessing with, as the example, Las Vegas. You're looking at Butler, Pennsylvania, same thing, and you're looking at, what you're raising now with Candace Owens in France.
Well, yeah. And I guess what I'm driving at too regarding Charlie's assassination, and Candace has said that she's never going to vote again until this thing is solved and people are brought to justice, because Charlie Kirk genuinely had affection for Donald J. Trump and played a central role in getting Trump elected. And it appears that the U.S. federal government's interest in solving Charlie's assassination is nil at best, and maybe nefarious at worst, when you consider the fact that Kash Patel allegedly read the riot act to Tulsi Gabbard when Tulsi came in from DNI and said, hey, I want to see all your papers. I want to see all the evidence you have. We need to look into the possibility of foreign involvement in this assassination. Kash got mad. Kash got visibly angry, it said. And he wants Tulsi to have no part of this. So there's red flags everywhere we look, and that's the point. We don't know who to trust anymore, Len.
Yeah, and the red flags is evidence. Every little piece that we're discussing fits into the bigger picture, which states that there's a racketeering globalist enterprise. I believe, like you're not only dealing with the Rothschild old money from Europe, but you've got to go beyond that to the Roman Catholic Church, the financiers, the use of the Jews as the money lenders and the money makers, the usury that Jesus Christ absolutely said, this is hypocrisy. And so we've got to go to this whole deeper level, like I shared, this whole connection. What's the solution? It's spirituality. It's our connection to God. It's recognizing basically the God and Yeshua, Jesus within us. And that everything else that we've gotten in this conspiracy realm, manipulative realm, is really not where the action is. And that, I think, is the solution too. We've got to come, like in medicine, I simply, I refer to my medical training. You've got to diagnose. You've got to see through to the root of the disorder. That's what diagnosis means. Diagnosis means seeing through to the root of the disorder. When you do that, in law now, you're dealing with a racketeering enterprise, the globalists. Today, again, I unfortunately love Trump. I say unfortunate because I see him being played over and over, and or being a player over and over again in the same old divide and conquer ploy. Who's in the Trump White House right now? Look at Larry Fink. Look at BlackRock. Look at where did BlackRock come from? The economic crash of 2008. Lehman Brothers overextending all of that investments in real estate crashed the entire market. Just like today, we're susceptible. I'm reading it all the time. NVIDIA, if that bubble bursts, everything goes. Now, there are people that are theorizing that's where the whole operation is going. But go back to 2008, and you see the same thing over and over again. What has been suppressed in favor of the racketeering enterprise pattern and practice? In 2008, you had Lehman Brothers go down, and what happened? What happened was two major guys came out of Lehman Brothers and basically became partners for the entire planet's corporate community. They were Larry Fink. Where is Larry Fink today? He's not only in the Trump White House working with Trump, but he's also the director of the World Economic Forum. What? Are you kidding me? Now, if you read one of my most recent books, is called The Trump Assassins. Trump Assassins. Get it on Amazon Kindle. Trump Assassins goes into the chief suspect in the assassination, from Crooks, who was seen in a BlackRock commercial while he was still in high school, and then suddenly he gets out of high school as a mathematical whiz and genius, and now, BlackRock, intelligence agencies. My theory is that they took Crooks right out of high school. They put him into intelligence with CIA, and they made a Manchurian candidate. Because what happened, as it's been in the news and shown, despite what Kash Patel is saying, that he acted alone, he transformed massively. His brain shifted into a completely different state from being pro-Trump 1 year. The next year, he hates Trump and's got to assassinate him. How does that happen? It can only happen through drugs and mind control. Now you are talking about the CIA's MK Ultra program. That is what it does to individuals. And if you don't believe me, you could read the Frank Church Congressional Investigator during the 1970s, 1976. Overseen by who? Rockefeller. Oh, wow. There's your Rothschild link, because the massive amounts of Rothschild money went to the Rockefellers. The old money went to the new money, and the new money controls everything. Now, not only Larry Fink emerged from Lehman Brothers, but his good old buddy, Stephen
Schwartzman,
comes out and forms Blackstone, not immediately. So you got BlackRock, which is really the world's most powerful, along with Vanguard, partner with the world's most powerful industrialists. But at the same time, coming from Lehman Brothers, you have Stephen Schwartzman comes out and basically says, I'm going to join you in this
BlackRock group.
Well, the two of them supposedly did not see eye to eye. So a few years later, Schwartzman leaves Fink at BlackRock and forms Blackstone. Interesting. Blackstone. Isn't it interesting? Now, just a note on the side. Blackstone, by the way, is the world's #1 property owner. Real property interest owned by virtually Stephen Schwartzman from Blackstone. So now,
let me just interject, because I've got a few thoughts here. When you consider, I've been saying this a lot too, when you consider BlackRock, 12 trillion under asset management, when you consider Blackstone, when you consider, Fidelity, fill in the blank, State Street, I've been saying that these are the trillionaire class. These are their investments coming out into the wide open for everybody to see. Because I've said for a long time, I made a video about it a few years back, the richest man hoax, talking about, well, in that case, Jeff Bezos. I mean, what a joke. He's the world's richest man based on one generation of wealth with one company. How about the people that own all of the companies and print the money out of thin air and then marry intergenerationally? So, and by the way, when you think about the Mexican drug cartels trying to go kind of mainstream, right? Trying to take their riches and monetize them in a legal way, you think of those beautiful resorts that exist in Cancun, all over Mexico. Those are cartel resorts, cartel owned to a large degree. We're talking about Vegas, the MGM. I'm thinking the old school mafia back in the days when Vegas was born. They're racketeers. This is the mafia in control. That's what I'm trying to say. It's the mafia in control.
Exactly. Yeah. So Schwartzman leaves Fink because of supposedly some disagreement. Now, interesting, politically, how does that play out? It plays out that if you look at the source of DEI and wokeism, that's Larry Fink. He was completely Democratic supportive versus Schwartzman, who's complete supportive of Trump, Republican Party, and basically that's where his big money goes. So that's interesting, again, because it fits into this whole scenario we're discussing now about the racketeering enterprising, which is using the divide and conquer scheme, left versus right, Democrat versus Republican, gay versus straight, rich versus poor, black versus white, Christian versus Muslim. This is the racketeering enterprise's modus operandi. So the other thing that you've just raised is the fact that we're not seeing the real players. We're not talking about, for example, the Roman Catholic Church, how basically they were not involved in usury. They could not, by their religious beliefs, be involved in lending money. So what did they do? Start back in Italy with the Medici family. They hire the Jews to be the front men. That's why you're looking at people like Peter Thiel or the other ones that you've mentioned. We see them in the news, but you don't see really who's behind them. Why? Because the front men take the risk of the bullets. the assassinations would go against them, not the big money makers. So anyway, that's my take, my conclusion on what it is that I think I can only reconcile integrating conspiracy, reality, racketeering enterprise, virtual globalist mob.
That's right. That's right. All right. So we're arriving at the same conclusion. And then I guess the only thing to consider would be this, trying to find our cup is half full in some way. Is it possible that within this global mafia, there's infighting that occurs, which may have led to Trump to intervene to save the prince's life in Vegas? But the flip side of that coin is he didn't intervene to save Charlie Kirk's life and doesn't seem to care very much about solving the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So we can't really have it both ways. That's what I'm struggling with here, Len.
Okay, well, let me see if I can help you with that. I completely agree with you. I see the same thing. Now, that speaks to human behavior. You know, let's assume that obviously Trump is a businessman and a genius who doesn't take no for an answer and has the extraordinary gift to be able to work out business deals with people. Now, obviously, in that position, he's not going to agree with everything. And yes, because you're dealing with these people who are psychopaths, they don't care. I go back to Michael Chertoff. You look at what he's capable of doing is genocide. These are the people behind the wars. These are the people behind the assassinations and the mass murders. So do you think that they really care about human beings? But, you know, Trump is a family man. It is conceivable, in fact, most likely, that a part of Trump's heart recognizes that he doesn't want to really not be able to stop some of this murderous insanity. And, you know, getting to his position on peace and making peace deals internationally, you can look at that in two ways. One is what we're talking about. He sincerely believes a part of him, let's say a sub-personality, because we all have our sub-personalities. That's something else typically not discussed in psychology. But let's assume that a part of his brain wants peace, wants his family to be healthy and have a secure future. That's terrific. Another part of him, however, since he grew up in the mob, look at his connections to Cohen in New York, dealing with all the corruption in the banks and the banking systems, and also the criminal organizations in New York. He grew up in that. You're telling me that he doesn't know about how it actually operates?
Well, and by the way, I just want to let you know in the audience, watch the documentary about Trump. I think it might just be called Trump or the Age of Trump. I forget, but it was on Netflix. My wife and I watched it. And you're right. That relationship with Cohen, I mean, this guy is so savvy that he literally hired Cohen, who is feared as a Jewish attorney in New York City. He hired Cohen just to put that fear of God in Trump's enemies. And it's a very, very well done documentary, but it makes me realize, and my wife looked at me and said, oh my God, you know, maybe some of the things that people say about Trump are true. I mean, this is a maniacal guy, but an extremely brilliant guy. So much so that he strong-armed the New York government, the city government, into giving him a 40, 50, 60, 100-year tax abatement on some of his properties. So he doesn't have to pay property taxes on these things. The guy is so savvy, and your point's a good one. I mean, he ran in the same circles as these power brokers who were very, very shady, Len.
Right, and so that would largely reconcile what the issue that you're raising. How can we see good and bad playing out? But again, I go back to my original conclusion. The good, the truth that shall set us free, and the life of we the people in favor of God rests in God. And basically what we're playing out here is virtually the book of Revelation, especially when it talks, you know, my area of principal expertise. I'm well known for my exposing lab viruses from HIV, AIDS, and Ebola to now COVID. You know, I wrote the book, another book that I have out that's really good is called COVID Coup, The Rise of the Fourth Reich. So unless the intelligence community and the media addresses the issues that I raised, and this goes back to Chertoff. Chertoff is intimately connected with the Fauci inner circle. So then again, you've got to look at, well, what's BlackRock's, Larry Fink's investments along with Bill Gates and Microsoft and OpenAI and artificial intelligence? And what's all this Jeffrey Epstein confusion and diversion about, really?
It's not about sex, idiots. It's about profitable population control.
Well, just take a look at the picture, the photograph that's on the internet. You've got
5 guys standing there.
You've got
Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary and former Harvard president.
You've got Harvard University biotechnology professor Boris Nikolic, who has an investment firm, an independent private equity investment banking firm with Bill Gates, goes with Bill Gates, who's in the picture too, next to Jeffrey Epstein. What the hell do you think that they were going to Harvard for? Talking about pedophilia? No, they were going there basically to invest and advance the work that was now completely censored, totally covered up. Again, here you have your pattern and practice of organized crime, using the media to divert from the facts. The fact is your mRNA vaccines by Moderna, which intimately connects to Pfizer's research and developments with mRNA vaccination for COVID. Moderna, Robert Langer, director, was partnered with Charles Lieber in publishing science regarding this basic fundamental, here it is, nano, neuro, bio, electronic technology for optimal population control, which totally fits exactly what we've been talking about. The CIA's MK Ultra mind control, mass media persuasion, but in this case, the media, which carries the message, which basically influences the brains of we the people, that is wireless. The technology, nano, neuro, bioelectronics through the graphene, which is a poison. Now you're starting to realize where all of these diseases have come from the coronary artery diseases and the hemorrhaging and the blocks and the death by heart attacks suddenly in youth and fit people, as well as COVID cancers like I suffered and by the grace of God, got over. This is where Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein went to Harvard.
It's not about sex, idiots. It's about profitable population control.
Because that's where the action is for total population control, massive wealth. And that's why now you literally see in the Trump administration, in Project Stargate, Sam Altman, OpenAI, stands next to Larry Ellison of the CIA-developed company called Oracle. Oracle, what is Oracle? The concept is, oh, you're an oracle. Basically, you can see into the future of technology, in this case, nano, neuro, bioelectronic technology for optimal population control. That's Project Stargate. That's, again, where a huge red flag goes up for me with regard to Trump. You know, in the first administration, he was surrounded by inside traitors. Now, he's still surrounded by people who, in my opinion, my conclusion, are satanically possessed criminal psychopaths who don't give a damn about how many people they murder, genocidally impact, and they serve this entire globalist agenda that Larry Fink with BlackRock and Blackstone and all the movers and shakers, Bill Gates, World Economic Forum members, that's what they're into. Now, there's your racketeering enterprise. And unless Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and whoever else is really going to do an adequate job, then they've got to go there.
Yeah. No, listen, I said to my wife the other day, and look, I'm hopeful. I'm starting to believe Owen Benjamin has got it right. Just get a plot of land, have a farm with your family, and live a small, God-fearing life, because, you know, the battle is within us at this point, because I can't solve the problems in the exterior world that we're talking about. They're almost insurmountable. So we have to look to within. We have to find our God life and live our lives and raise our families the best we can. And yes, be politically active, starting on a local level. starting on a local level, you got to take your city council back. You got to take your schools back. I mean, I know it's an uphill battle, guys, but it's very disturbing to hear all of this because there is no easy answer to what ails us, Len. There is no easy answer, is there?
Sean, let me compliment what you just said. It's brilliant. We've got to go to the law, not man's law, God's law. That's reflected in the Constitution and man's law. Here's the example. You see what you just said? Yeah, we'd all like to retire and go off and live in peace in a cabin in Vermont or New Hampshire, some woke place. We would prefer, however, to abide by God's law, which says that if you're a whistleblower and you see something that's going to damage somebody else or kill somebody else, the Bible says that if you do not act as a whistleblower to stop that whatever, in this case, we're dealing with massive disease, mortality, morbidity, mass genocide. If you don't act with your intelligence to stop that, then the blood is on your hands. Likewise, it's reflected in man's law. In fact, it's 42 USC 1986, which is titled the Neglect to Prevent Law. That if you have this intelligence and you don't share it to save lives, then those people who die or become sick, that blood, that damage is on your hands, and you are liable civilly by 42 USC 1986. So that's why I do what I do. That's really the fundamental reason why you do what you do and why this program is so important.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Let's pay it forward for Len. Guys, terrific products, including Oxy Silver, available. I will leave a link below. Len, I know, look, the economy's tough right now. I'm hearing that from many of my affiliates. The economy is tough. People are strapped. Thanks to the Federal Reserve and endless printing and the debasement of our dollar, people are really struggling. But you do have remarkable products, and I want to point that out to my audience. So what do you suggest for people who are strapped but want to be as healthy as they possibly can? What should they look to at your shop?
Get a $39.95 bottle of Oxy Silver with 528. Powerful alternative to vaccinations and antibiotics. It makes them all obsolete. It gets us into this next realm of understanding. In fact, my conclusion is that the entire field of medicine is as corrupted as we've been talking about. It's absolutely insane how they're basically treating various diseases when fundamentally a human being is a spiritual being, not just a physical being. So my most recent work, which basically corroborates why it is that 528 frequency alone, I just sent off for peer review publication in the top autism journal, how autistic problems can potentially be resolved by frequency therapeutics. So 528 Oxy Silver is a model electroceutical that performs miraculous healings. Why? Because you're working with God's technology. 528, go into research 528. I'm just redoing 528revolution.com, the website. 528revolution.com will give you some fundamentals. Go to oxysilver.com.
Go to 528therapy.com.
Learn how this intelligence is practically applied with electroceuticals to get rid of all the poisonous vaccinations. And Kennedy, God bless him, he's exposing some things, but he's not exposing 3/4 of what the problems with vaccinations are. In essence, when you get vaccinated, you're basically denying God's Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit does all the healing, always has and always will. So this is what Jesus was talking about by saying, come out of her, my people. Come out of the deceptions and the hypocrisy and engage in this divine communion from which now miracles happen, including miraculous healings that Jesus demonstrated. So Oxy Silver with 528 is that kind of a technology that basically prompts that miracle. The 528 frequency alone is the miracle note of the original musical scale. Most recent science shows that gold, pure 24-karat gold, it has a surface resonant energy. It's called plasmonic frequency. of 528. That's consistent. And basically where we got this intelligence was from the book Healing Codes for the Biological Apocalypse. That's actually producing, if you go and put 528 in a search engine, you'll see now hundreds of thousands of articles and videos produced in that for helping reduce stress, inducing sleep. Those all came off of my work. My book, publication 1998, Healing Codes. The healing code for this age, biological apocalypse age, is the miracle frequency of love 528, which is the key. Now you go into the Bible. Where is the evidence? Not only did this intelligence come from the book of Numbers, but go back into Isaiah 22:22 and Revelation 3:6-8. What is it talking about? The key of the house of David. Wow, that's Jesus's bloodline. That's King David. That's Solomon's bloodline. The key to that house of miraculous manifestation of not just wealth, but God's grace and blessings is 528. So that's what this technology, I urge people, use it the way I instruct. Use it with prayer, because what's coming out of your heart in faithful, loving intention for miraculous healing is coming out on the 528 wave. It's a vibration, just like you tune a radio to a certain frequency to get the signal. The clear channel broadcast from your heart to God's heart is 528. There's a tremendous amount of evidence and revelations that are, we're thankful for. This is the modern gospel. And what we've been talking about this entire show of the demonic impositions and the possessed individuals that administer it, the genocides, come out of that insanity. Where do you go? You look into God's love, God's grace, and the revelations, the modern gospel. That's 528 frequency with Oxy Silver as a perfect model and example of how we can do it.
All right. Well, I will leave the link below. We appreciate you. Known you for a long time. You're a stand-up guy. And I guess at the end of the day, we can pray, right? We can pray for our country, pray for divine intervention, pray for peace on earth. I mean, that's really what we all want. Nobody wants a big, giant, monolithic government that's always fear-mongering and taking us to endless wars. We're all tired of it, Len. We're all just sick and tired of it, especially young people. That's where they're really losing the narrative now, is with young people. Young people are questioning everything. The Gaza genocide, the taxation without representation, the debasement of the dollar. They may not be able to point the finger directly at the Fed, but they're starting to figure it out. The system has thrown us all under the bus.
Isn't it great that God has put us into this position now where we have to make that choice? We have to exercise the greatest gift that God ever gave humanity, which is free will, freedom of choice, to choose to come out of the insanity and engage natural medicine, which heavily involves the Holy Spirit that does all the healing. And so that's where I'm thankful, even in the desperate times in which we're living. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. It's a mystery, but God knows exactly. And so where should our faith be placed but in the Creator?
Well, that's right. It's a short life. Believe me, mine is zipped by. I'm already in my 50s. It's crazy, guys. So get busy living or get busy dying, and do not die on your knees. All right? So I will leave a link below. drlenhorowitz.com, medicalveritas.org is where you can get all the research papers and so much other good information. And then, of course, healthyworldstore.com. I will leave that link below if you want to get the Oxy with silver.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Sean. We really could use the financial support at this point.
I hear you, brother. All right. Well, Semper Fi, we appreciate you very much. God bless you, and thank you for your time today, Len.
I love you, Sean. Keep it up, brother. I love you.
Much love. All right. Appreciate you. There he goes, guys. Dr. Len Horowitz. The links are below. Thank you so much for tuning in, friends. Challenging content, I know, but I really do try to just bring you the truth as I see it. I'm just one guy on the internet, but what a complicated world in which we live, where so much of it does feel like theater. Guys, I'll remind you every single day for free. Check us out to get the real news, the antidote to corporate propaganda 24/7 at sgtreport.com. And until next time, God bless you and yours. Bye-bye.